Welcome in college baseball central fans. Back at it again with another exciting week in Texas baseball. Um, I think I'm going to dub this one the loser weekend, as a lot of the big dogs in the Texas kind of lost this weekend. But before we jump into that, Marshall, how are we doing today? I know you were absent last week,
No.
busy being a college kid on spring break.
Yeah, no, it was fun, but hey, we're back and we're fresh and ready to go again. But yeah, kind of a crazy weekend for Texas Division One college baseball. Had a lot of teams turn some heads and kind of raise some eyebrows as well. So I guess we'll get into it. But yeah, happy to be back.
Joey, almost like Randy Marsh. It seems like every time they just try and beat you down, but you keep coming back.
Yep. Yep. That's how I've been operating. So, been pretty busy, and pretty much describes the Longhorns as well. Down, but getting through. Down,
Down but not out.
but
We'll
not
start
out.
kind of with I think the most shocking weekend for me at least. Texas Tech dropped 2 of 3 to Baylor. They won Friday night 2-0. Really didn't hit the ball well. Saturday they went down 5-0 in the third. It got suspended for rain, so they were going to come back, do a Sunday doubleheader, and they lost 5-1 and 7-2, and didn't hit the ball particularly well at all. Mason Green for Baylor was really, really tremendous. McKinney and Ruiz in that kind of Saturday split were really, really good, and Baylor hit a long home run. But Tech just had a terrible, terrible approach. Marshall, is that kind of what you saw from them as well?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't pay it, a ton of close attention to them this weekend because number one, I thought it wasn't even a question with Tech playing Baylor this week. But the bottom line is, you got to score more than 4 runs against Baylor University. I mean, that's just kind of, yeah, I mean, that's kind of pitiful right there. I mean, your big dog Gavin Cash didn't have a great weekend. He went 2 for 12 along with Tracer Lopez. He went 2 for 12 on the weekend. And then Kevin Bazell went 2 for 11 on the weekend. And so those are your 3 core bats in the lineup that just didn't produce this weekend. And so that's obviously going to hurt them a lot.
Yeah, I was there on Sunday, so I got to see it firsthand. Cash rolled over on a lot of balls, hit a lot of weak grounders. Honestly, it just looked like Tech didn't really want to be there. And I know that's weird to say because they dropped the series last
Mm.
week at Texas. They won Friday night, and you almost feel like, hey, if Tech can come out dominate early, they can kind of get momentum going. And they just came out flat, and I don't really know what to say about them. They sit now at 2-4 in Big 12 play, and it's quickly starting to get away from them. Joey, what are you seeing from Texas Tech right now, and how do you think they go about fixing it?
Yeah. So to begin, like I was looking at the scores on Sunday, and I couldn't believe my eye when I saw Baylor beating Tech. So like I'm just very underwhelmed. Like every time I look at Tech, and I'm just like, I expect so much more. Like I know after they put up a really good fight against the Longhorns, which may or may not have said something about either sides, but I've just been very disappointed in how the Red Raiders have played so far, especially recently.
Yeah, I mean, in the Baylor point of attack from a pitching standpoint, I don't think was anything really crazy. They threw a lot of
Yeah.
lefty freshmen, guys that were about 60, 70% strikes. They chased an absolute ton of pitches. We did have a second rain delay on Sunday, and that was really kind of the only time I saw Tech get even just an ounce of aggression and have a little bit of passion. And Baylor immediately kind of hit them with the 3 spot the next inning. So it really, really didn't last long. And Tech's going to need to figure things out really, really quickly going forward. Because
Yeah,
again,
it's weird because like you said earlier, they felt like a trap game for Texas Tech, like almost like a Tuesday meaningless midweek matchup. But I mean, it's your second weekend in Big 12 play. I get it, there's rain delays and stuff, but I mean, you already lost a series against Texas, and you just come out just completely flat. That's really disappointing. I'm sure
yeah,
Tadlock's kind of ripping into his guys.
and there's a lot, and we'll talk about TCU here in a little bit. We'll talk about Texas here in a little bit. There's a lot of teams that are really going to be fighting for their life in the Big 12 going forward, as you just kind of really built up a nice lead. Tech has BYU this weekend, which again is a team that they on paper should beat. They play them at Tech, so I maybe this is a coming out party where Tech kind of gets rolling. And we'll
Yeah.
talk about BYU a little bit down the stretch here when we talk about Houston, but I almost say that Tech needs to sweep this weekend if they want to have any shot to kind of get rolling here in the Big 12. Is that kind of what y'all are saying?
I don't know if they need to sweep, but they definitely. I mean, they definitely need to win the series for sure. Because then they're kind of rolling into UCF. So the their next two series are new Big 12 contenders, or not contenders, but participants and opponents. Yeah, there we go. Couldn't find that word, but yeah. So I mean, it's just going to be kind of a different matchup these next couple weeks. But I don't know if they need to sweep, but they definitely need to win.
I mean, the way that they play on the road, they feel like they have to just start stacking up some of these wins
That's
here at
actually
home
true.
because
Yeah.
you know that they're
Mm-hmm.
going to drop 2 of 3 on the road every time they go. Like,
Yeah.
it's just Tech's in a weird situation. They should be so much better. I mean, when you look
Yeah.
at the lineup on paper, Gavin Cash, Tracer Lopez, Damian Bravo, Kevin Bazell to some extent. I don't know if he's been nicked up, but he's not been catching it all. I just really expect more from them. They really kind of should win these shootouts, and they go to Baylor and score 5 runs across 3 games. It's just not the Texas Tech that me and you grew up on, Marshall, by any stretch of the imagination.
No, not at all.
Moving on to kind of our next series. Again, before Joey, Marshall, and I kind of give our opinions, Texas fans, we need to remember this series means nothing in terms of Big 12 play. While they did look flat, at the end of the day, you're 2-1 in Big 12 play. You beat one of the quote-unquote big dogs in Big 12 play. But Friday night, they lost 9-3. Bullpen only went 3 innings after a great LeBaron Johnson start. 7 runs were allowed by the bullpen. Only had 7 hits. 5 of them were singles, so really didn't see the ball well at all. Saturday was a 5-3 loss. Cody Howard was very ineffective in kind of his start. He went 2 innings, 5 runs, but Ace Whitehead went 7 innings, only allowing 1 hit to kind of keep Texas in it. Jalen Flores went 2 for 4 with a double and a home run. Will Gasparino hit a home run. Jack O'Dowd hit a double. So a little bit better, kind of a wake-me-up game. And then on Sunday, Texas won 4-3 in an 8-inning kind of flight-shortened game. Grubb had 5 hits, 1 ERA. Behind him, the bullpen was again shaky as they had 3 hits, 1 run in 2 innings. Joey, I know you were there all weekend. What do you think this weekend kind of went wrong for Texas? As I know, obviously, the headliner was they had that big bullpen meeting on Friday night to kind of get things right. What do you think this bullpen needs to do going forward in Big 12 play?
Well, amongst the things that Pierce said in the Friday night thing was that the pitchers needed to start developing roles, so to speak. So that is definitely like there is no clear cut, like no players outside of Whitehead has stepped up into a solidified role. Like Whitehead stepped up, Grubb stepped up, but it just seems like it's just a very hodgepodge, like everyone's out there because even in the rotation, it's like you got LeBaron, who is your solidified Friday guy, but nobody know like the Saturday guy, Sunday guy. It's just there's no consistency, and nobody has stepped up to that point. Like I think going forward, I think Whitehead's going to probably be the Saturday guy, and Grubbs will be the Sunday. But as we've seen this season, it could change in a couple of weeks. Like we started the season with Hurley and Witt, and then we had a Cody Howard insert in the rotation. There's just not been much continuity. And then as far as the hitting is concerned, they fell really flat at times. Like basically the game on Sunday was more of a scratching out runs kind of affair, so to speak. But that's I guess it's a good sign considering they can find ways to score at times, but got to be more consistent on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, for the pitching staff, it almost feels like it's every 1 step forward, 2 step back. I mean, Gage Bohm was the quote-unquote hero in Houston, and you kind of expected him to take that next big role. Immediately takes a big step back and is kind of the big one. Heston Tolley, I think, is another one. I don't know if he just doesn't have faith in his fastball, but I couldn't tell you the last time I saw Heston Tolley throw a legitimate fastball in a game. It feels like it's just not something he does anymore. And then from a hitting standpoint, I don't really know what to think because at times it just seems like they compound at bat after at bat after at bat, and then you blink and it's the 7th inning and they're down 4-1.
Yep. And today's Air Force game showed a lot of that because in the 7th inning, the Longhorns started erupting and put up like 7 runs out of nowhere and turned a relatively close 5-3 game to 12-3 before we know it. So it is there. It's just this whole team just needs to be more consistent in their approach. Simple as
I
that.
would say kind of the one that exemplifies how Texas has truly been hitting the ball, I think, is Jared Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
At the Tech weekend and this last weekend, he's now hit a combined 240 with one extra base hit. He seems to get about one hit a game. And then after that, like, he's supposed to be the guy. Like, he's supposed to be, your doubles guy that likes stuff out. And that's just really not been the case. I think that that's kind of where not necessarily the hole in Texas's lineup is, but I feel like they don't have a guy that they can count on to get doubles like they've had in the past with Doug Hodo, like they've had in the past with Skylar Messenger. It just seems like the identity of this team is, we're going to get singles. Jalen Flores is really our only home run guy. Galvan sometimes can touch one about one a weekend, but we're going to be a lot of singles and doubles.
As well.
Yeah, it's just a weird Texas team.
Yeah,
like, it doesn't feel like a Texas team, especially in the Pierce era, like at all. And I don't know if they're going to have to start bunting more, if they're going to start hitting running more, but I think something's got to change just from an approach standpoint from Texas.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. It's just been really tough trying to figure out the story of the 2024 Longhorns up to this point. It's just like very tough to figure out. Even I watch every game and I can't figure out how things are going at times.
They need like a little Augie-ness. Remember how Augie was famous for the second somebody gets to first, you're squaring around to bunt.
Yep.
I feel like that's what they need. They just need to kind of play into their strengths. I think that they're still trying to figure stuff out, and they're quickly running out of time. And again, I know they're 2-1 in the Big 12 play, but I mean, it's Texas. Like, you have to have higher aspirations. They're the only team that's Omaha or bust, and I know that feels weird saying, but I just expect more from Texas. Marshall, I know that me and Joey kind of went on a rant here. What are you kind of seeing from this Texas Longhorns ball club?
Yeah, it's like you said earlier. Like, I mean, every step forward they take, the next step is backwards. And so, like, I mean, for example, Friday night, LeBaron Johnson, he gives you a gift. He goes 6 innings, 5 hits, 1 earned run, and then your bullpen gives up 6 runs in the 7th inning. And I mean, it's just like. And then Jared Thomas, who you're supposed to be your stud at the top of the lineup, he has 2 hits on the weekend, and so it's just it's a very confusing Texas team. I do actually think that they're going to turn it around. Do they go? Yeah, Baylor rolls into Austin.
And Kansas.
Baylor, who's already upset somebody,
but has already upset somebody. I think that was not necessarily an anomaly, but I don't think Texas Tech.
But again, that could be their anomaly series.
100%, 100%. But I think that if they go out this weekend, maybe this weekend they put it together. I'm not sure if they will or not, but maybe this is the weekend that they get it going.
Play Baylor, Kansas State, BYU, Houston before TCU, OU, Oklahoma State, and then they finish with UCF, Kansas. So they're going to have a little bit of time to figure it out. But the flip side of that is they're going to have to start stacking up wins against these.
They got to stack up wins. Yeah, it's not necessarily about figuring it out now. It's about going out and doing it at this point, because you got to stack up
business, so to speak.
It has been a while and I should note that game in Kansas State is at Kansas State, and it's been a while since Texas has kind of gone up to Manhattan and won a series. That always kind of seems to be their wake me up Pierce late April series, and this year, I don't think they have that luxury that they've had in the past where they stack up these wins. I don't know what to think of Texas. I don't want to write them off just yet. I know a lot of people are kind of down on them. I think they get rolling. Unpopular opinion. I think that they get rolling here.
I think so as well. I mean, I was about to say the next couple weeks seem very favorable. I know Kansas State has given the Longhorns some issues over the years, but I think up until Houston, now is the time to start taking advantage of that lesser schedule, so to speak.
Moving on, I guess, for into me and Marshall's kind of wheelhouse, Texas A&M dropped 2 of 3 to a Florida team that loses midweeks but wins weekends. On Friday, they lost 8-6. They had a 5-run second inning, and then outside of that, they really didn't do anything. Neely went 3 innings for Florida, kind of slammed the door. Saturday, they won 10-6. They threw that haymaker. It kind of stuck a little bit that time. Shane Sadeo was a little shaky in the 9th that you kind of got a little worried about there. And then Sunday, it was just 4-2, really, really close game. Late home run from Florida is really kind of the reason that they lost. This was A&M's not only first loss period on the season. It was their first series loss. Marshall, I part of me wants to say that this was just a baseball series, but
Yeah.
again, with the the midweek that we just had, I don't know if it's leaving a bad taste in my mouth, but when do you start to worry about this A&M team? Because it kind of seems like they get it for one inning and they're up really high, and then after that, it's just nothing.
Well, they need to learn how to play with the lead against these good teams like Florida. You know, it's easy to play with the lead against Rhode Island or, you know, some small mid-major who you're just naturally better than. But this is their first taste of, you know, real competition, you know, especially with, you know, the reigning runner-ups in the Florida Gators. But they gave up 3-run leads in games 1 and 2. And so they need to be like it's the first weekend that they've shown a little bit of doubt, you know, for within the team and for their fans. But Ryan Prager, who has had a 0 ERA all year, just doesn't have his stuff on Friday night. He goes two and a third, 7 hits, 6 earned runs, only 1 strikeout. It just looked like he was hanging the ball over the plate. But then Chris Cortez comes in and just looks dominant. He made 2 bad pitches, which gave up 2 home runs. And that's ultimately like the reason they lost. But yeah, all weekend they showed competitiveness, and they showed a lot of fight. But they just need to be able to learn how to play with the lead, I thought. And also, just Florida's really freaking good. Jack Caglione.
I mean, that's at the end of the day. Yeah, Florida's a really. But
Florida is just really good.
Friday, I just kind of like. I felt like they let Florida hang around. Like they kind of really could have thrown that knockout punch, which again. I feel like that's what we saw like the last 2 years from A&M is they have this one big inning where they come out, and then after that, like they don't really do anything. That's the one thing that really kind of worries me. And again, I think the staff's going to be better. I mean, Prager.
Yeah, Prager's going to be better. That's his first. You got to cut him some slack. He's not going to have a 0 ERA all year long. It just happened to all come out in one game. But something promising is Chris Cortez looked absolutely electric besides those 2 pitches that he made. I mean, I think he had 7 strikeouts in a row at one point on Friday night. But then also you go into Saturday, you know, looking to bounce back, and they ultimately did. But early on, it looked scary because Tanner Jones goes 2 1/3 to start it off on the bump with 5 hits and 5 earned runs. And so starting pitching just has to be better, I think.
Yeah, I think the good thing, and I mentioned it kind of in my SEC podcast that I had on Monday, is if Chris Cortez can kind of work into like that Evan Aschenbach long starter role, I think that's really going to bode well. Because again, I don't think there's going to be too many outings where Tanner Jones goes 2 1/3. I don't think there's going to be too many outings where Ryan Prager gets chased in a second. And if you can get Evan Aschenbach and Chris Cortez to finish games out for you, you really don't need a good bullpen. Like at the end of the day, they can just roll out there with, I guess, 5 starting pitchers going forward.
Yeah.
Joey, I know that you were kind of clued in on Texas. What do you think about this Texas A&M team going forward?
I mean, yeah, it was interesting to see how they started the season out, but I was not surprised to see how the Florida series went. I mean, I think it's going to set them well in the long run. I mean, they're still really good on paper, and they're still going to be really good from here on out. But I think Florida exposed a lot of holes in the Aggies that it's going to be interesting to see which way the Aggies go with that, if they're going to go down or if they're going to go back to what they were to begin the season. So it may be a good thing, but maybe a bad thing as well. So that's how I see it.
Yeah, it seemed like Florida's guys. It seems like Florida's top dogs just showed out this weekend, and A&M's didn't. I mean, you didn't really see like Braden Montgomery. He had 2 home runs, but Jace didn't have a huge weekend. Prager didn't have a big weekend. Grahovic actually showed a lot of promise. You know, he might be the best freshman in the entire country. But I mean, you saw Jack Caglione show out for them. You saw Brandon Neely. I mean, he was lights out from the bullpen for the Gators all weekend long. I mean, he might be one of the best arms out of the bullpen in the entire country. But it just seemed like Florida's top guys just showed a little more edge this weekend.
You mentioned Grahovic. I think the thing that really impresses me the most about him is he always seems to have his like quote unquote freshmanness come out in his first at bat. He doesn't sometimes take the best at bats, but he doesn't compound them. It seems like every time he takes a bat at bat, his next at bat, he really kind of dials in and hits the ball hard, and it usually finds, some grass out there. I think that's been the most impressive part that I really haven't seen from a freshman in like a really, really long time, where they have kind of a professional approach at the plate. And again, he's got the beard, he's got like all the muscular strength. He doesn't feel like a freshman, like
no, not
in
at
any
all.
sense of the word.
Yeah, even with Jace last year, you could still kind of see.
You saw it. Like at times he struggled to hit curveballs. At times against elite pitching early, he kind of was not necessarily exposed, but there were holes in his swing and he had to make adjustments. And even then, he's still making adjustments. I don't see that with Grovic like at all.
No,
it almost feels like a graduate transfer in a freshman's body.
Yeah, almost.
But A&M gets Mississippi State, Auburn, and South Carolina, which again, 1 weekend into the SEC. I think everything that you thought was going to be tough series is flipped, and everything that you thought was going to be easy series is now the tough series. I mean, Mississippi State took 2 of 3 from LSU. Their whole issue last year was bullpen. They seem to have the bullpen now, and they have a very, very scary lineup that's going to roll in to Bluebell. That's a smaller ballpark. This is kind of a good proving weekend for the A&M bullpen, as Hunter Hines, Dakota Jordan are legit bats in the SEC. They might be the best top 5 bats, I think, in all the country.
And they're hot too. So
they're very hot. Yeah, I think they've won 12 of 13 or something like that. I know everybody kind of wrote them off for being like crappy at the beginning of the year, but they've quietly turned into a very, very not only respectable team, but honestly like a borderline host right at this point.
Yeah.
Like as it loads up, they're 16-6. They were 3-4 at one point. So they have been absolutely rolling. Like I said, they took 2 of 3 from LSU. A lot of Mississippi State fans that I saw thought that they should have won it on Saturday night too, as they were down 9-1. They had that play at the plate. But moving on to another kind of disappointment, TCU Horned Frogs. They got swept at home by Oklahoma. They sit 1-5 in conference play. Friday night, they only had 3 hits in the final 5 innings, as OU's bullpen really kind of took it to them there. Saturday, Klecker really wasn't that sharp, and again, they dropped that one. Bullpen didn't really step up after Klecker was chased in the 5th. Didn't punch back after the 4-run 5th inning. And then Sunday, Sloan really wasn't sharp, going only 3 innings. Joey, we'll start with you. What has gone wrong for this TCU Horned Frogs team?
It's a very similar issue that TCU and Texas is having, because I was looking at TCU starters earlier, and it's just like they're not getting anything out of their starting pitching. Like, they've had bullpen guys step up, like Zach Collier and Braden Sloan have been back and forth relief and starting, but when it comes to like just having they're just struggling on the pitching side, and it has shown at times.
Yeah, I know that I always use the example of just win, baby, with Arkansas, as they seem to do everything wrong and then win. I think TCU's doing the opposite. I think that they're just losing. Like, you can't really point to one thing that's wrong with them. I mean, Friday night it was the strikeouts. Saturday it was the bullpen. Sunday it was just kind of it wasn't our day kind of day. But at what point do we start to kind of see some issues? And Marshall, I guess I'll go to you. What do you think TCU needs to do to kind of right the ship? And this feels weird saying in the 3rd week, but in an elimination series with Oklahoma State, what do you think that they need to do to be successful?
I was thinking about this earlier when I was, this weekend when I was watching the games, and they just have just such a mixed bag of issues. I can't pick something out. It's very weird. And so I'm not even sure. I mean, you have a quality start with Peyton Tolley. You go 6 innings, 3 hits, 2 earned. And then the bullpen gives up 4 in the 7th. And then but then you turn around, 2 days later on game 3 on Sunday, Braden Sloan only goes 3 innings, and he gives up 5 runs. 3 have earned it, which I believe. But it's just it's very. And then you mentioned the strikeouts and stuff. I don't know. It seems like they don't have a leader right now. Is from what they don't have one guy taking charge. You look at A&M, you know who their guy is. It's Jace and Braden Montgomery. But you look at TCU, and I don't see it. Peyton Tolley maybe, but I mean,
He went 0 for 3 and only played in one
yeah,
game hitting. I was going to say, I don't think his
I don't
bat's going to be
know.
in the
Yeah,
lineup going forward.
yeah. I
Peyton
mean, I
Chattier,
have no
who they
clue.
were leaning on a ton early in the season, he hit
Yeah.
2 for 13 this weekend and was 0
Uh-huh.
for 9 going into Sunday. I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think that they need to have somebody that they can kind of step up and
Yeah.
be that leader for him. I mean, at times it's Curtis Burns, at times it's Maxwell. But again,
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot of things that they're going to get right going forward. I think Cole Klecker is going to eventually kind of click and turn into that Friday night guy that we saw going forward. Ryder
Mhm.
Robinson had a really forgettable weekend, only going 1 of 10. I think he's too talented to have that be his norm. I expect him to kind of break out going forward. Again, I think Brody Green will find his way back into the lineup. Silva, I think, is going to find his way near the
Yeah.
top but he hits better at the bottom, so that's kind of a weird thing about him I've
Mhm.
noticed. They play Oklahoma State this weekend. We'll make a prediction. Marshall, if TCU wants to be 2-1 or better, X needs to happen. What's the X?
Starting pitching. That's what I'd say. Starting, you got to have quality starts, and it's just so there's so many things I could say, but that's what I'm going to go with is just starting pitching. Cole Klecker, he right around on Saturday, he's got to come out strong. Peyton Tolley, and then I don't know who they're gonna. I don't know if they're gonna go Sloan or someone else on Sunday, but I mean they just got to have good starts in the bomb.
Yeah, Joey, is that kind of the same thing you're going to go with here as the starting pitching?
Yeah, I was about to say I was leaning towards like the starting pitcher. They just need Klecker and Tolley to be on their A games if they want to have a chance to take the series against a pretty good Oklahoma State team at that.
I'm going to go with. Oh, go ahead, Marshall.
Go ahead, Jake. Go ahead.
I'll just say, I think Peyton Chattier has to break out this weekend. I think he's got to go.
Mhm.
He's got to get a multi-hit game in one.
Yeah.
He's got to get on base multiple times in another game. He has to be like the havoc on base passes that he was doing at the beginning of the year. Because again, I think he's kind of the catalyst that gets it going. Like he kind of seems like the thermostat. Like when he's up high going, the offense get rolling. They have a ton of confidence. And when he's kind of going 0 for 3 with 3 strikeouts, that kind of seems to be how TCU's offense kind of rolls. So did I steal yours there, though, Marshall? Is that
yeah, you did. You did. But I mean, you look at Chattier, you look at his days at Ole Miss, and he was just that energy guy. You on the field, on social media, wherever it was, he was just that huge energy guy. Who also, he brought it on the field as well in his play. But he's got 2 hits in his last, I think, 8 games, something like that. He's sitting at the top of the lineup. He's the graduate transfer. He's a former national champion. He knows what it takes. He's got to be that leader that steps up and has a big weekend and gets this Horn Frog team going.
That's kind of what we saw with Ole Miss last year. They always seem to kind of go by him, and his bat unfortunately disappeared.
Yeah.
I think he comes back. I'm calling it now. I think he has an X Factor weekend. He's going to score the winning run on one game. I think he's going to steal a base in another, and I think he has a double or a home run in another game. I think he's going to be the X Factor MVP for TCU this weekend. Moving on to kind of our quote-unquote mid-major series of the week, but it is a top 25 matchup. Sam Houston plays DBU in what I think is going to be the Conference USA championship going forward. These are the 2 best teams in the Conference USA. Part of me wants to say that it's DBU. They swept Corpus. They've looked really, really good, but Sam's quietly kind of gotten on a hot streak. They lost to Houston on a walk-off. They swept Texas State. They lost by 1 to Texas A&M, played them tough. Took 2 of 3 from New Mexico, and then last night scored 18 runs and blew out Baylor that just beat Tech. I called it in my upset pick. I think Sam Houston pulls the upset this weekend. Joey, I know you got to see DBU up close and personal as they kind of gave your Islanders the business. Yeah. What do you think happens this weekend with DBU, Sam Houston?
I think DBU goes 2 out of 3 because I was just watching that all weekend, and I knew DBU was probably going to sweep the Islanders, but I didn't think DBU would destroy the Islanders the way they did because the Islanders came in hot, but my goodness, I think DBU might have the best offense of any team in Texas. I know they are mid-major and all, but I was just impressed watching them hit over the weekend. I was like, wow. I was about to say DBU had a big weekends from Joey Narat, Ethan Mann, and Miguel Santos. Those three just completely carried DBU, and if they can get more effort out of those three, keep it going, I think DBU will probably cruise in this series.
I mean, Grant J is obviously stealing all the headlines for good reason, but I think the thing that really impressed me the most about DBU is just how much they pound the zone. I mean, they only had 8 walks all weekend. I think that that's like a recipe for success going forward.
Yep.
Is pound the zone. We know we're if we get into a shootout, we know our offense can win it, but we're not going to get in a walk fest. And it's a very, very simple philosophy. Marshall, what do you think Sam Houston needs to do to pull the upset this weekend?
Yeah, they got to rely on their their top dogs this weekend. You've seen it the last couple of weeks with Walker Yannick and Malachi Lott. Those guys are they're so hot at the plate right now. I mean, Walker Yannick or Yanich. I'm not sure how to say his last name. Yannick.
Like you're yawning.
He went 5 for 10 on the weekend, and then Malachi Lott, he's 13 for 21 over his last 4 games. And so if they can keep that up, with those two guys in the middle of their order, that's going to put them in a really good position. But they're facing some really good pitching. I know we talked a lot about DB's offense, who just put 26 runs up on this weekend on the Islanders. But James Ellwanger, freshman on Sunday, he's been really good. And then also Ryan Johnson, their Friday night guy. I mean, it seems like he's just consistent with just going 7 innings. 0 to 2 earned runs a game, which is he's just been, kind of their backbone coming into weekends, and it's been really cool to see. But I'm going to go with you, Jake. I'm going to throw Sam Houston as my upset pick for this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Yannick and Lott, and obviously they're 2 of the most talented players in all of Conference USA. But Caleb Cottons has nearly a 500 on base percentage. Easton Lloyd has some very, very underrated power. And then Lane Brewster seems like he's always a threat to kind of change a game, whether it be good or bad. DBU, the pitching is what really impresses me about this because, again, their hitting is going to keep them in a lot of games. You mentioned their Friday night guy. They also have a Pettit, too, that's pounding the zone for them.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So just to kind of recap, Marshall and I are on Sam Houston 2 of 3. Joey, are you taking DBU?
Yep, DBU 2 out of 3.
Moving on to the Houston Cougars, they dropped 2 of 3 to BYU. They won Friday night, then lost 2 straight. Bounced back yesterday against Rice, but again, Rice isn't what they need to be. Yep. Kansas State this weekend. What does Houston need to do to kind of solidify themselves into this Big 12 race? Because this kind of feels like an inflection point in the season for both Houston and Kansas State. What do you think Houston needs to do, Marshall?
Yeah, it's tough because they kind of threw me for a loop this weekend when they went down to BYU, but they're playing Kansas State, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not. It's
a toss-up. If you would have, if we were talking about this last week, I think we would have been all over Houston, but
yeah,
you almost forget that they lost to BYU because they won on Thursday. It was a Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Yeah.
I guess just you got to have a big weekend out of the top of your order with at the plate with Trey Jones, Alex Lopez, Cameron Nickens. Just like those guys, I think you got to score a lot of runs this weekend.
Yeah, and they do have the lineup to do that. I mean, you mentioned those guys, Ace Reese, Harold Cole, the Arkansas transfer, French behind the plate. They have the talent, I think, to get in a hit off here. Joey, Kansas State obviously has a really good staff. They have a Big 12 staff. What does Houston need to do, again, to kind of limit Kansas State coming into town?
Well, I think it's more of the hitting was what I was thinking, like Marshall was saying. Like Kansas State's staff is legit, and if the Cougars can get some runs up early and keep going from there, then they should be in good shape against Kansas State.
Yep, I think they need to limit Kalen Culpepper, Brendan Jones on the base path. He can absolutely fly. I think the one weakness that how they're going to beat Texas or Kansas State is they strike out a ton. I think if they can pound the zone, limit the walks, kind of get it into an 8-5 range with a little bit of strikeouts, I think that's where Houston kind of needs to succeed. Moving on, I know that we talked about Southland last weekend. The WAC is kind of our big focus as it's got a ton of Texas teams. Abilene Christian, UT Arlington. Hold on a second here. My notes just kind of disappear on me. UT Rio Grande Valley, SFA, Tarleton. I guess we'll start with you, Marshall. Who has caught your eye kind of in a very wide open MAC conference?
Yeah, the easy answer is Cal Baptist, who's sitting at the top of the conference right now. But I'm going to go the ACU Wildcats. I think that they have a lot of juice. And they're coming off a win off UTA this past weekend, but they've just I watched them earlier this year, and I think it was against Oklahoma State, who Oklahoma State's not who they typically are this year, but they ended up losing, but they're a scrappy ball club who I think is kind of a sleeper for making a run, maybe not in the regular season, but I think in that conference tournament especially. I think that they're kind of a sleeper in that conference. They can put up a lot of runs, but then they kind of limit their opponent when they're on the mound defensively. And so I'm going to go with the ACU Wildcats.
Yeah, I mean, Brett Lehman and Ian Campa, I think, are one of the best 2-1-2 punches in the WAC, and Brett Garcia comes out of the bullpen a ton for them, so they have a lot of flexibility. But I think they really have the Conference Player of the Year from a graduate D2 transfer, Gino. I think it's Delasio.
Gino Delasio. He's hitting 395.
Yeah, it's like he's having an insane season.
What? Yeah. I saw that. And I'm like, holy cow, man.
But you mentioned ACU being scrappy as a team that kind of gets going. Mine's the UT Arlington Mavericks. I mean, I think they're a scrappy team. They played just an absolute brutal out-of-conference schedule. UTSA, Lamar, Boston College, midweeks with Texas Tech, Sam Houston, Arizona State, and OU. So a lot of teams that, we're very, very high on. The thing that really impresses me about them is Tyson Pointer. Again, I think he's kind of their best bat. And again, the ERAs are a little bit high right now, but they played a lot of really, really tough competition going forward. So I think that's kind of my quote unquote pick to click is UT Arlington. Joey, I know Marshall and I have kind of taken the two big guns out there. Who's impressed you in the WAC so far up to this point?
Yeah, in terms of, I was about to say Grand Canyon has impressed me, and then my dark horse for the WAC is UTRGV. They've been kind of inconsistent at times, but when they have put it together, they are pretty good. Like, I think UTRGV will figure it out and be a contender for the WAC when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I mean, they obviously had the big week over UIW, who's been absolutely rolling. Steve Lancia's hitting over 360 for him. The thing that really kind of jumped out to me is Cade York, CJ Valdez, and Isaac Lopez are all over 13 bases on balls to start the season. Like, they just get on base in a money ball sense. I think that's what's really impressed me the most. Tarleton, I know that we didn't mention them. They're kind of a mixed bag as they drew Abilene Christian and Grand Canyon, who are arguably the two best teams in the WAC. I think Trace Morrison and Tyson Drake are their two best hitters. SFA sits at 0-6. I mean, there's really not a lot to say there.
They lost, I think I checked 16, 17 straight losses.
Let me pull it up because
they actually had a decent start to the season, I want to say.
Yeah, they blew out Corpus in both games that they played, including a run rule in the second one.
They play UT Arlington this weekend as it loads in. They are 3-19, and they started 3-1.
18 straight losses.
So 18 straight losses. 14-4, 10. They really they struggle. Friday night's kind of a bad situation of they struggle to get outs and hit Friday night pitching. So deadly combination there for the Lumberjacks.
Golly, I hate to be in Nacogdoches right now, man. Ugh.
As we kind of close this out, Marshall, give me your bold prediction about any team in Texas this weekend.
Okay. I kind of said I kind of said Sam over DVU earlier. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go. Tech goes down again this weekend.
Tech goes down. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm sure Jackson behind the scenes is just
Yeah, I
punching
know
the air.
he's kind of punching the air right now, but yeah, I'm just not. I'm BYU. They're coming off a good Houston series win this past weekend. I think that they take it against Tech this weekend.
All right, Joey, I'm going to challenge you. Give me a hot take about a team in Texas not located in Austin.
Ooh, I was about to say I was leaning towards talking about the UIW Islanders series, and I'm still like, do I want to go Islander? I'm really thinking there might be an upset special for the Islanders this weekend at UIW.
I kind of like that. Yeah, I could see that.
I was about to say UIW last year came into Chapman Field and pretty much derailed the Islanders' season, dropping them from a 2 to a 7 seed. So I think Corpus is going to repay the favor this year and win the series at UIW, a place that they've traditionally been really good at. And dang, I had a thought in my head. I can't remember what it is, but I think the Durs are going to beat the Cards this weekend. I'll be there for that too. That's what I was trying to say.
All right, here is my boldest take. I think TCU drops 2 of 3 again this weekend to Oklahoma State.
Really?
That's my bold take.
Do you think it's OSU getting hot and figuring it out, or do you think it's TCU just slumping?
I think I trust Oklahoma State to hit TCU's Sunday pitching more than I trust TCU to hit Oklahoma State Sunday pitching. I think that's what it ultimately comes down to. I think Sam Garcia. I mean, I don't think he outduels Peyton Tolley on Friday night. I think Tolley either takes a step back or Klecker continues kind of his 4 innings, 3 runs, and the bullpen gets it up. But I think that they drop one of those 2 Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday, Oklahoma State gets them in a hitter's fest that they just don't have the wherewithal to win. Say what you want about Oklahoma State. They always win on Sunday, it seems like.
Yeah. It's the only games they win all year.
Thanks, Marshall and Joey, for joining me. It should be an exciting week in Texas baseball. As always, we're going to be covering it on the scene. I'll be at Sam Houston DBU as well as Texas A&M, maybe even Houston on Sunday, just depending on how everything works out. Joey's going to be in the house for the Islanders. Marshall, I assume you'll be at A&M. But Thanks again for joining us. See everybody next week.
See you guys.
See y'all.